When a man touches you, it isn't only the skin that feels. There is something deeper, more subtle, almost imperceptible, but absolutely true. Sartre said, "The body is the way in which the being for itself finds itself in the world." In other words, we do not own our bodies as if they were just any object. We are our bodies, and when someone touches us, they are touching who we are, or at least touching the image of who we have constructed before the other. Have you ever wondered why certain touches mark you more than words? Why sometimes a simple, almost careless gesture is enough to make you believe there is feeling there, even when not a single word has been spoken. For Sartre, desire is a battlefield between two consciousnesses trying to assert themselves. One desires, the other is desired. One touches, the other feels. But what we do not always perceive is that, in that instant, we are not just being desired. We are being seen or shaped. In this video, you will go through 7 places where a man touches you when he likes you. But more than that, you will learn to listen to what that touch says about his soul and about yours. Because no gesture is neutral. Every touch is an assertion of freedom or an attempt to escape it. Touch reveals. Touch exposes. Touch sometimes betrays intention. Imagine the following scene. You are talking. The night is calm. The lights are low. He approaches slowly, and suddenly, he touches your hair. It seems affectionate. It seems caring. But you feel something more. A discomfort, perhaps, or a surrender. It is in that space between gesture and meaning that self-knowledge lives. It is there that philosophy meets psychology, and it is there we begin to understand. The touch you receive says as much about him as it does about you. Now, before diving into the 7 places, pause for a moment. Remember a remarkable touch. When was it? Where did it happen? Who touched you? And most importantly, how did you feel? Seen or used? Free or imprisoned in the other's desire? Sartre said, "Hell is other people, but perhaps hell is not in others. Perhaps it is in allowing ourselves to be shaped by the eyes and the hands of someone who does not even know who they are yet." This is an invitation to lucidity, to conscious desire, and above all to the freedom to choose who you allow to touch you. A man touches before knowing why. The gesture often comes before rational consciousness. He extends his hand, moves closer, seeks contact, and only afterward, perhaps, tries to justify the movement. For many men, touch is a language that escapes rational control. It is where the unconscious speaks, reveals itself, betrays itself. In male psychology, touch can function as a substitute for speech. While some women learn to express emotions with words, many men, from an early age, are taught not to verbalize what they feel. They are taught to act, not to expose. Thus, they touch as if to say, "I am here," but they rarely know exactly what they are trying to affirm with it. Sartre said that desire is a project of appropriation. We want the other as freedom, and at the same time we want to make them an object of our wanting. That is why male touch is ambiguous. When he touches you, he is trying to assert his own desire, but without necessarily assuming what that implies. Because desiring is dangerous. Desiring is exposing oneself, and admitting desire is accepting the risk of refusal, vulnerability, surrender. Many men touch without knowing if they are ready to feel. They touch on impulse. They touch out of habit. They touch as an escape from the anguish of being alone. And the most unsettling thing is that sometimes they touch to discover if they still feel something, as if the other's body were a surface on which they try to rediscover their own lost identity. They touch to recognize themselves. They touch to avoid internal silence. Have you ever been with someone who touched you tenderly, but whose presence seemed absent, as if he were there physically, but his mind was wandering elsewhere? In these cases, the touch is not connection. It is a shield. It is an attempt to appear present without truly being so. And there is the opposite, the man who hesitates to touch. The one who feels but fears the gesture will reveal too much. This man holds back his desire as if holding his breath. For him, touch is dangerous. He knows that by touching he will say what he does not dare to verbalize. Because deep down, touch is choice. And choosing to touch is choosing to assume something, affection, desire, the possibility of bond. That is why, by observing where a man touches you, you are not only identifying whether he likes you, you are unveiling the quality of his presence. You are accessing his relationship with his own desire. You are understanding what he does not know how to say or does not want to admit. Sartre also said that every man is what he makes of what was made of him. The gesture he repeats today may be the legacy of past absences, unnamed fears, unconscious patterns. It is not an excuse, but it is an alert. Touch speaks, even when the man does not want to talk. And so when he touches your hair, your hand, your face, what is he saying? That he feels, that he desires, or that he is trying to turn you into a mirror in which he seeks some certainty about himself. Now that you understand how touch is an unconscious language, we can begin to decipher that language in parts. Let us start with a warning. This is not about decoding universal rules, as if his body worked like a predictable manual. Each gesture carries the uniqueness of the one who makes it. But there are indeed subtle patterns, traits of a male psychology that, without even realizing, expresses itself in touch. And when he touches you, you feel it, even without knowing why. Hair, the touch that tries to tame chaos. Hair is symbolically the place of loose identity, of what escapes control. That is why touch there is ambivalent. When he touches your hair, he may be expressing affection, a desire for closeness, a protective instinct, but he may also be seeking control. There are men who stroke a woman's hair as if to shape, adjust, improve her. It is a touch that says, "Let me organize you," even if unconsciously. But there is also that light, almost devout touch that does not seek to control, seeks to feel, wants to lose himself a little in the other. As if, by touching your strands, he reconnects with something more delicate within himself. Ask yourself, was his touch in your hair caring or corrective? Hands, the touch that reveals partnership or performance. Touching hands is perhaps the most visible gesture. Holding hands, offering support, gripping firmly, or merely brushing lightly. But behind the gesture is always an intention to mark presence. A man who holds your hand in public is saying, "She's with me." But what does that mean for him? Companionship, display, protection, possession? Some touch your hand as if they want to walk alongside you. Others do it as if to ensure you cannot escape. Sartre reminds us that every relationship with the other is a tension between freedom and objectification. A touch on the hand can be an alliance, or handcuffs. And you, when he gave you his hand, did you feel freedom or surveillance? Shoulder, the touch that tries to soothe or guide the shoulder is a place of support, and so touch there may seem neutral. But nothing is neutral. Touching the shoulder can be an attempt to console, to be together, or it can be the gesture of someone who wants to lead, to direct, to redirect. Some men place their hand on your shoulder as if to say, "Everything is all right." Others as if to say, "This way." Subtlety is everything. The strength of the touch, the timing, the repetition. Is it care or command? And more important, did you allow the touch, or merely endure it because you did not want to confront him? Back, especially lower back, the touch that exposes desire. Here there are few excuses. Touching the back, especially the lower part, is rarely innocent, no matter how brief. It is a gesture that often escapes rational control, an impulse that reveals desire. But even that desire can stem from different places. A man may touch your back because he feels connected to you, or because he wants to reduce you to the body he desires. The line between admiration and appropriation is thin. Sartre spoke of the nausea we feel when we realize the other can turn us into an object. That is the risk here. Do you feel that he sees you, or that he only consumes you with his gaze and his hand? Face, the touch of most intimate presence. Few touches are as intimate as this one. Touching the face is, in a way, seeing with the hands. It is seeing up close. It is approaching the soul. Men who touch a woman's face gently tend to be emotionally available. This gesture is slow, conscious. It is hardly done. On impulse, One must be present to touch like that. But be careful. There are also those who use this touch to dramatize sensitivity, to perform romance. The intention here can be a mirror. See how gentle I am. So once again, the question returns. Did you feel seen or used as a stage? Knee or thigh, lightly, the touch at the threshold of the unspoken. This touch is rarely explicit. It happens slowly, in silence, often during a conversation, sitting side by side. It is almost always a test. He wants to know if there is permission, if you respond, if there is reciprocity. The knee is a border, a neutral territory between contained desire and bold gesture. It is there that the man tests the limits of intimate space. This touch says a lot about his courage to assume what he feels, or about his hesitation to verbalize. Have you ever sat next to someone whose touch on your knee gave you chills, not from desire but from invasion, or on the contrary from intense connection? This touch is always ambiguous, and it is up to you to interpret it. Neck and nape, the touch of vulnerability and surrender. The neck is a sensitive, fragile, intimate place. When he touches it, he is entering a territory where rationality usually yields. It is a gesture of trust, and often of surrender. Few men touch a woman's neck without some degree of emotional involvement. It is a touch that reveals more than the body. It reveals the desire to approach what is most human in the other. But again, touch can have multiple meanings. For some it is pure sensuality, for others it is emotional surrender, and for some, unfortunately, it can be a gesture of symbolic domination. It all depends on how, when, and why. That was the mapping of the 7 touches. But now that you know where he touches, it's time to look at what that reveals about him, and about you. No gesture happens in a vacuum. When a man touches you, it is not only he who is expressing himself. You are there too, with your body, your history, your freedom. Touch is an encounter. But what kind of encounter? Sartre said that a human being is a project in a situation. This means that he is not only what he does, but what he decides to be in the context in which he finds himself. So when a man touches you, he is, even if unconsciously, responding to his own situation and revealing the project that sustains him. Is he in search of authentic connection, validation, pleasure, escape? Let us invert the gaze. Instead of asking only what he feels, ask, what is his touch trying to avoid feeling? Many men touch to escape silence, the discomfort of emotional intimacy, the weight of having to put into words what they feel. They touch so as not to think, so as not to plunge into the abyss of their own emotions. Others touch to reaffirm themselves, as if, by touching another's body, they were trying to recover their own sense of potency, masculinity, dominance over something. As if the female body were a mirror in which they could see themselves stronger, more alive, more desirable. But there are also those who touch because they feel, who are not afraid to take emotional risks, who know that touching another is also allowing themselves to be touched, who do not want to turn anyone into an object, but to find another subject with whom they can truly exist. And you? What do you feel when you are touched? That may be the most neglected question. Instead of deciphering his gesture, you can begin by deciphering your own. Response. Do you feel pleasure, fear, distrust, hope? Do you accept the touch because you want to, or because you feel obliged to meet the other's desire? Have you ever said yes when you wanted to say no? Have you ever remained still, waiting for the gesture to end, while forcing a smile? Sartre spoke of bad faith as the attempt to deny one's own freedom. Often, we accept certain touches because we pretend we have no choice, because saying no would mean facing the anguish of disappointing the other, or of being alone, or of seeming difficult. But every time you accept a gesture you do not desire, you betray yourself. You become for a moment a being in itself, an object in the other's world. You cease to be freedom and become function, and that sooner or later hurts. Therefore, more than identifying whether he likes you, mapping touch should serve to identify who you become in his presence. Do you feel you can be yourself? Or do you feel you need to be what he wants? Are you there by choice or by concession? This chapter is about turning the mirror onto yourself. because it is easy to decipher the other. Hard is to face your own reflection in someone else's gesture. The touch that moves you, does it free you or bind you? The touch that excites you, does it illuminate you or extinguish you? The touch that comforts you, is it genuine presence or well-disguised absence? Each gesture is an opportunity to awaken or to lose yourself a little more. And you, at this point, in your life, are you ready to be touched? Wholly. Knowing where and how a man touches you can be revealing, but knowing is not enough. The true power lies in what you do with that knowledge, because awareness alone does not transform. Transformation is born when you act from it. Sartre said, "It does not matter what they have done to you. What matters is what you do with it." This oft-repeated phrase carries a brutal weight. It returns responsibility to you, and that can be frightening, but also liberating. So what will you do with the touches you receive? Most people live their relationships on autopilot. They react, adapt, interpret signals, but rarely stop to ask themselves, do I really want this? Does this way of being touched represent me? Does this bond allow me to exist authentically? Or am I playing a role that steals my voice and body? The proposal here is not that you become paranoid about every gesture. It is that you become lucid. Existential lucidity is not cynicism. It is clarity. It is perceiving the game without letting yourself be trapped by it. The first concrete practice born from this lucidity is listening to the body. The body feels before the mind understands. It gives signals, shivers, tension, relief, contraction, desire, discomfort. If you ignore these signals, you will live relationships based on the other's logic. But if you listen to your own body, you will begin to choose from yourself. The second practice is the exercise of presence. When you are with someone, ask yourself, am I fully here? Or am I divided between what I feel and what I pretend to feel? Am I responding with truth or merely avoiding conflict? That demands courage. Courage to frustrate expectations. To say, I don't like it when you touch me like that. To affirm, I need more connection, not just physical proximity. Courage to withdraw when you are treated as a surface, not as a subject. But it also demands openness, because authentic bonds are not built only on protection. You must allow yourself to be seen, to be felt, and yes, sometimes to be touched. A man who touches with truth, with presence, with responsibility, also deserves your surrender. Not blind surrender, but conscious surrender. One that says, I choose to be here. Because freedom is only realized when shared, when both are subjects, when there is no performance, no manipulation, no complicit silence. And perhaps the greatest transformation happens when you stop asking, what does he feel for me? And start asking how I feel about myself when I am with him. If you feel you need to shrink, adapt, hide parts of yourself to be touched, that touch is not love. It is disguise. If, on the contrary, you expand, feel more alive, more authentic, more whole, then there is something there worth building. You can use this awareness to choose better, to stand firmer, to abandon relationships where touch is mere performance, and to value those where the gesture carries truth. Ultimately, it all comes down to this. Your freedom is non-negotiable. Your body is sacred territory. And every time you allow a touch, you are authorizing a presence. May that authorization come from choice and not from need. In the end, touch is not just a gesture. It is a mirror that sometimes brutally reflects the relationship you have with yourself and with your freedom. Sartre teaches us that human beings are condemned to be free. This means there is no written destiny, nor a manual of conduct. There is no predefined role for how you should be loved, touched, desired. Everything depends on the choices you make, including those that seem small, like accepting or refusing a gesture. Touch, then, is always a risk, because it can remind you of what you desire, or of what you have been avoiding confronting. It can be an invitation to intimacy, or a reminder that you are betraying yourself once again. But touch can also be redemption. It can be the place where you recognize yourself, where you find yourself again, where you realize you are not alone, but also not at anyone's mercy. Because now you know that the way a man touches you says more than 1,000 declarations. You know there is a difference between being touched hurriedly and being touched with presence, between being caressed intentionally and being used as a distraction, between being seen and being projected. You have learned to hear the silence between one gesture and another, to perceive what was not said, to feel what was not confessed. And above all, you have learned to listen to yourself. Perhaps that is the greatest gain, because a woman who listens to herself, who feels herself, who stands for herself, is not easily manipulated. She does not settle for crumbs of attention disguised as affection. She does not accept touches that diminish her. She demands presence and offers truth. This woman, when touched, does not ask herself, "Does he like me?" She asks, "Who am I becoming by allowing this touch?" And that question changes everything. Sartre would say that freedom is realized in the act. It is not enough to know that you are free. You must choose how to live that freedom. You must choose the kind of relationship you want to build, the kind of affection you want to nurture, the kind of touch you want to allow. So, now that you have come this far, the final question is just one. Are you ready to be touched not with haste, but with truth? If the answer is yes, then may every touch from now on also be a pact of authenticity. May it say, "I see you, and I choose to be here with you, without masks, without games, just presence." And may you, feeling that gesture, be able to say with your body and soul, "I am here too, whole, present, free." That is the true encounter. And it begins, always, with a gesture, but it never ends there.